Fauchagu ye Olde Scot the Celtic podcast. Kimraha Huladunya, how is everyone? On today's show in Feuchamaich, Beagan, Gaelic, that's Let's Try Little Gaelic. The beginner's Gaelic book, Eoin. In Celtic history, the story of Froach and Maeve. In everyday Celtic ways, Chulainn. Now we'll hear music from Scone, Ella Roberts, Gaelic Storm, Anna MacDonald, and Granier Holland. And always it's a wee bit of Irish trivia to test your knowledge to start us off. What was the name of the Irish currency before it joined the euro in the year 2002? Check out the Olde Scot Facebook group where you can be a part of the Celtic culture, and keep an eye out for all the different videos our YouTube channel and Facebook group have to offer. Kershmaha, let's kick this thing off. Scottish Gaelic is native to the Gaels of Scotland. Scottish Gaelic developed out of the Old Irish, and learning this beautiful language can be a direct link to your Gaelic ancestors. Follow along in Feuchamaich Beagan Gaelic, and like I said, let's try a little Gaelic. Today on Feuchamaich Beagan Gaelic, the children's Gaelic book, in Eoin. Hunnic sin Gaelach an Safark. Cruab sin Chias. Hannic Daddy leis an tractor agus het it. Hoyet sin sin aniet aka. Han Haka sin aniet icher. Hunnic sin glashen an Safark. Va u kuak an saniet eka. Sin un an Sahar. Horstadi gor a Shevak a Leon a. Hook and teacher Ushka agus briskich ya. Yol a Antuska. Urshin Bochikin ya. Kadoyi a Icher iet. Hunnic a Jelen J, Leom a air, agus yi a. Lekshin Falav a en Urshin. Vaniet lon du an Savahak. Hunnic Misha a Echur Achluas Rishant Halav. Stob a Yav Shias agus Hur a Botchak. Yalav a Lesh a Vodchak Yan Vahat.
She ran off with Jackalico, a pirate of great fame. Young Annie Bonny sailed the sea where the best, mastered cutlass and pistol, and escaped the hangman's noose. The Endeavour and yo-ho the rum it flowed, but His Majesty's navy was ready this time. The crew being punch drunk, Annie led the stand. She drew cutlass, drew pistol, but stood 20 to 1. Young Annie Bonny sailed the sea where the best, mastered cutlass and pistol, and escaped the hangman's noose. Annie went to see Jack, the gallows been his fate. He'd fought like a man, it's not like a dog he'd have. Jack and his crew met the hangman at dawn. Young Annie escaped and legend has it set sail. Young Annie Bonny sailed the sea where the best, mastered cutlass and pistol. Young Annie Bonny sailed the sea where the best. Young Annie Bonny sailed the sea where the best, mastered cutlass and pistol, and escaped the hangman's noose.
Celtic history brings you the tales of the land, castles, warriors, heroes, legends, and customs that have created the rich, vibrant, and sometimes strange and wonderful history of the Celtic world. The tale of Froach and Maeve. Feuchamaich is an island found on the northern reaches of Loch Awe in Argyll. Its name in Gaelic literally means Heather Isle. Now, although it is more likely that it got its name from the Celtic hero Froach, for it is here that a story unfolds about the love-struck warrior Feuchamaich of the Sharp Blades, who was a handsome warrior. Now, his hair was said to be black, fine, and glossy like raven's plumage, smoothed on the snow. His heart beat solely for one true love, find Aber, the daughter of Maeve, a beautiful maiden with golden hair. Now, alas, Maeve also loved the dark-haired hero, and her jealousy soon turned to an all-consuming hatred. Then hatred turned to vengeance, and before long she was plotting his demise. Now, on Feuchamaich was a rowan tree, but this was no ordinary rowan tree. Its fruit was said to restore youth through the age and to satisfy hunger for 3 days at a time. Now, however, at the foot of a tree lay a fierce she-dragon, coiled around the tree's trunk. Now, the she-dragon's sole purpose was to shield the tree from those who would steal the precious berries. Knowing of the dragon, Maeve hatched a treacherous plan. She feigned an illness and then sent for Froach. She entreated him that she would die unless he alone could pluck for her a handful of the fruit from the cold lake in the rowan tree. He set off at once, swimming across the icy waters to the island. Using all his stealth, he evaded the dragon and harvested the luscious berries. Now imagine Maeve's fury when Froach returned unscathed. So she set about her scheming once more, and alas, she was still ill. She claimed, but perhaps the fruit was not enough. The whole tree was needed. So she needed it torn from its roots. So she told her lover, and now what lover would not travel to the ends of the earth to spare their sweetheart's pain of losing a loved one? So Froach did. Once more he dived into the cold water of the loch, and once more he evaded the sleeping beast, and it seemed that he had achieved the impossible, but the weight of the tree slowed the swimmer down, and he had broken the ancient taboo and cut the tree. So before he made it to shore, the dragoness awoke. She plunged into the water in a fury, and soon had the warrior clamped between her jaws. With no weapon to defend himself, the water turned red. The fine Aber was anxiously watching from the shore, and seeing her lover's distress, threw him her golden knife, and he plunged the blade into the beast. Alas, it was too late, though. Both Froach and the dragoness fell dead on the shore of the bare stones. Grasping her true love in her arms, fine Aber wailed a wretched lament, but her grief was too great. Sinking to the bosom of her handsome lover, her heart gave out, and she died. A cairn was raised over their grave, and the island was renamed after the hero and his lover. Now, meanwhile, Maeve, having lost everything, yet still somehow only concerned herself with herself. Selfishly, she thought she would try out the youth-giving properties of the fruit. However, because her heart was not pure, the berries turned to a deadly bane and poisoned her, and she died as well. Wow.
By yon bonny banks and by yon bonny braes, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, where me and my true love will never meet again, on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Oh, you'll take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland afore ye. For me and my true love will never meet again, on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. 'Twas there that we parted in yon shady glen, on the steep, steep sides of Ben Lomond, where in the purple hue the Highland hills we view, and the moon coming out in the gloaming. Oh, you'll take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland afore ye. For me and my true love will never meet again, on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. The wee birdies sing and the wildflowers spring, and in sunshine the waters are sleeping, but the broken-hearted kens their second spring again, though the wave foamy seas fray their greeting. You'll take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland afore ye. For me and my true love will never meet again, on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond.
Everyday Celtic Ways brings you the mythology, traditions, and customs that have created a unique and personal culture that still affects those that are Celtic and those that just love the Celtic world. All right, this week on Celtic Badass, Chulainn, Now, Chulainn was an unstoppable warrior and Irish legend who was renowned throughout the British Isles for his unmatched prowess in combat and his superhuman deeds. As a young man, Chulainn was a champion at hurling, the traditional Irish sport where a bunch of guys take these big-ass shillelaghs and whack lead cannonballs at each other's heads. But Chulainn wasn't the sort of guy who would be satisfied just by being the Michael Jordan of the National Hurling League. So one day he headed out to join the illustrious order of warriors known as the Red Branch Knights. Well, his first day on the job, he was supposed to go to a party at the home of this guy named Chulainn. Now, Chulainn was well known throughout the island as having the biggest, meanest, most ferocious, and fearsome guard dog in all of Ireland. Now, Chulainn showed up late to the party, and this dog completely flipped out, started trying to tear him a new esophagus. In self-defense, Chulainn swung his hurling stick and killed the crazed dog. When everybody saw that what he had done, they gained considerable respect for Chulainn's strength, but were understandably pretty upset that this kid had just, killed out their friend's dog. Now, Chulainn volunteered to act as Chulainn's personal guard dog until he could train a replacement, and he proved to be one of the best guards Chulainn ever had. Chulainn actually translates to the Hound of Chulainn. Wow. A nickname Chulainn loved so much he used as his own personal name from that point on. So for the next few years, Chulainn rose through the ranks of the Red Branch Knights. He was young, beardless, and by all accounts, one of the most attractive men in the country. So obviously he had all these chicks falling all over him all the time. Now, since most of the guys around him were starting to get a little jealous, they told Chulainn that they needed to hurry up and get married. Chulainn eventually fell in love and decided he wanted to marry the beautiful Princess Emer, daughter of Lord Forgal the Willy. Well, when Chulainn finally got up the sack to ask Emer for her hand in marriage, she told him he wasn't distinguished enough for her to be her man. So Chulainn headed off to Dunscaith, the Fort of Shadows on the Isle of Skye, in Scotland to train with the hard-ass warrior goddess Scathach. Now, he passed several tests in his effort to brave the countryside and reach her, leaping gorges, climbing mountains, and fording rivers. When he finally got to her, she agreed to train him in the art of warfare. For many years, he studied under her, learning all he could about combat, and finally being trained in the use of the legendary Gaidhlig spear. Now, the Gaidhlig was a huge barbed spear constructed from the bones of a giant sea monster and served as Chulainn's personal weapon from this point on. He would swing it around and then kick it at his enemies. As soon as it penetrated a man's skin, 30 barbs would come shooting out of it, killing the person instantly. Since the barbs sort of made it act like a hardware anchor, the only way to remove it was to cut it out of their dead body with a sword. Now that's hardcore. Now, towards the end of Chulainn's training, Scathach's bitchy sister Effie showed up on the island to battle her as part of their never-ending blood feud. Chulainn offered to help fight Effie, but Scathach didn't want to risk it. Effie was the most dangerous fighter in the world, and Scathach knew that Chulainn wouldn't be a match for her in combat. So on the day they were supposed to have their duel, she slipped him a potion that made him pass out and sleep through the epic clash that was about to take place. Well, the problem is it didn't work on him. He woke up right as the contest was starting and rushed out to defend his master. Now, Chulainn and Effie dueled for several hours before Chulainn finally bested her. He offered to spare her life if she swore to end her feud with Scathach, which she did. Then he seduced her and they got busy. Booyah! Now, with his training complete, Chulainn headed home on his war steed, Grey of Battle. As he reached his homeland of Ulster, he found it under attack by the warriors of Nectin. Seeing his kinsmen fighting for their lives set Chulainn off, and he started flipping out like a ninja. He is known for his terrifying battle frenzy, or Rastrach. translated as warp spasm, in which he becomes an unrecognizable monster who knows neither friend or foe. He fights from his chariot, driven by his local charioteer leg, and drawn by his horses. Now he begins decapitating Nectan warriors all over the place, lacing them in the gut with the Gaidhlig. Even after the enemies were all killed, Chulainn continued to flip out like a psycho and attack anything that moved. So King Conchobar of Ulster sent like 100 hot naked babes to go chill him out. Now, we all know that no man worth his flipping out ability would attack a hot naked babe for no reason at all. But now that he had proven himself as a war hero by messing up the Nectans, Chulainn went back to the castle of Forgal the Willy to ask again for Emmer's hand in marriage. But Lord Forgal did not approve of Chulainn at all, but Emmer was in love with him and agreed anyways. Forgal heard of this and flipped out. He locked Emmer in a castle tower and started trying to marry her off to other nearby lords. Well, this didn't fly with Chulainn. He stormed the castle, killing 25 guards and knocking Forgal the Willy off the castle walls. Chulainn broke into the tower, rescued Emmer, and then sacked Forgal's treasury just for the hell of it, before riding off into the sunset and marrying the girl of his dreams. Now, if that isn't badass, I don't know what is. A few years later, the men of Ulster went to war with the armies of Queen Maeve of Connaught. The queen put the Ulstermen under a spell that would make them feel labor pains constantly, and while women are tough, can handle physical pain like eyebrow plucking and waxing, their bikini lines and birthing and stuff like that, men are total wusses when it comes to that stuff. So the Ulstermen were all rolling around, crying and complaining and doing nothing, asking for some Motrin, and Queen Maeve sent her forces in to invade the now undefeated land of Ulster. Now, Chulainn was still very young and still very beardless, and for some unexplained reason this meant he was unaffected by Queen Maeve's bizarre ability to simultaneously kick every man in the nation of Ulster directly in the balls over and over again. Now, driven by his duty to protect his homeland, he alone marched out to meet the Queen's forces. When he finally came face to face with the Connaught army, he challenged them all to a rite of combat. He boasted that he would battle one champion from Connaught forces each day in the ford of the River Dee. The Queen agreed that her army would not invade Ulster as long as Chulainn controlled the ford, and she would send one of her greatest warriors out to duel him every day until he was finally defeated. For roughly 2 weeks, Chulainn slaughtered all challengers he faced. At one point, Maeve actually sent the druid Chulainn and his 27 kids out to face him. All the druid's kids poisoned their spirits, but Chulainn was still able to defeat all of them, thanks to a timely run-in by his foster father Fergus. Finally, Queen Maeve got sick of this and sent her greatest fighter out to battle Chulainn, the knight Ferdinand. Ferdinand and Chulainn had trained together as boys and were good friends and blood brothers. They dueled for 3 days straight before Chulainn finally dropped him with the Gaidhlig. Unfortunately, the battle had left him so drained and wounded that he could not continue to defend the ford. The next morning, as things were looking their worst, the Ulstermen snapped out of their curse and formed up for battle. In the ensuing fight, the men of Ulster were able to defeat Maeve's army and drive them out of their homeland. Now, Chulainn had saved the day single-handedly holding off Connaucht's army until reinforcements could arrive. Many years later, Chulainn inadvertently pissed off the goddess Morgan by refusing to boink her when she showed up at his front door wearing nothing but a silk robe and some sexy lingerie. Now, she was so pissed at him that she tricked him into breaking his lifelong oath never to eat hound meat, and then sent a group of druids out to murder him. Chulainn fought the druids, killing several of them, but eventually was mortally wounded by a magical spear. Dying, Chulainn stumbled over to a large rock and tied himself to it so that even in death he could face his enemies standing. His death was later avenged by Conall the Victorious. Now, Chulainn is considered by many to be the greatest hero of medieval Ireland. He was brave, strong, and knew how to flip out and kill people when he had to. He got all the babes, and he had a crazy magical weapon. He rescued the girl from a castle tower, and he single-handedly defeated his countries against an entire army. He even had his death avenged. That's everything you could ask from a medieval badass. Come on.
Let me tell you a little story about a man named Johnny Tarr. He was a hard-drinking son of a preacher, always at the bar. Lager from the tap or shots of paddy from the shelf. He could open his throttle and throw back a bottle as quick as the devil himself. Johnny Tarr. And the word got around that Johnny Tarr was no pretender. From Clare to here they'd lock up the beer when Johnny went on a bender. Down at Dickie Max, the rising sun, or at the Swan. He was drinking by 7, by 10 to 11, well all the booze would be gone. Johnny Tarr. And even if you saw it yourself, you wouldn't believe it, but I wouldn't trust a person like me if I were you. Sure, I wasn't there, I swear I have an alibi. I heard it from a man who knows a fellow who says it's true. It was 9 in the morning on a cold and rainy night. Johnny walked into the castle bar, looking to get tight. He had money in his pocket, he had whiskey in his eye. He said, get up off your asses and set up the glasses, I'm drinking this place dry. Now all the serious boozers, they were soon broken-hearted when Johnny finished off 6, and he was only getting started, guzzling down the pints and knocking them back like candy. He was looking alright to be drinking all night, then Nora brought out the brandy. Johnny Tarr. And even if you saw it yourself, you wouldn't believe it, but I wouldn't trust a person like me if I were you. Sure, I wasn't there, I swear I have an alibi. I heard it from a man who knows a fellow who says it's true. Here we go, Sheila. Oh. Johnny drank the whole damn bottle, had another pint or two. When it made no impression, he started a session with Murphy's Millennium Brew. He was waiting for his pint when his face turned green. Jesus, Johnny fell down after only 15. Now you could have heard a pin drop and the crowd let out a roar. It took 5 Cork women to lift Johnny off the floor. The doctor looked him over, said you better call the hearse. But it's not what you're thinking, it wasn't the drinking, this man died of thirst. Johnny Tarr. And even if you saw it yourself, you wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't trust a person like me if I were you. Sure, I wasn't there, I swear I have an alibi. I heard it from a man who knows a fellow who says it's true. And even if you saw it yourself, you wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't trust a person like me if I were you. Sure, I wasn't there, I swear I have an alibi. I heard it from a man who knows a fellow who says it's true.
Top 11 Heritage. Now remember to check out my YouTube channel. It's got Celtic music, podcasts, Gaelic language, Gaelic song, Celtic history videos, plus lots more. And my Facebook group where you can give me your inputs and insights on all things Celtic. But before I let you go, the trivia question answer. The punt. Martian leaving Drozda. Bye for now.
Goodbye, Bobby.
Farflek agus fralik a shomar na halna sé dúnal na grenia gola tú hreia chaiche sé seachtain an gola dílan agus na tínil baninji heller. Dal hat sé sta me wahelig a chuta salenia dúnal na genia gus dúnal na glenia gus dúnal na grenia. Nílíon van a gorci náú leis a goman na chalíní agus single is pás am réicus am malú leis anna seachtain na bladar is brega achtarí scéalta. Dal hat sé sta me wahelig a chuta salenia dúnal na genia gus dúnal na glenia gus dúnal na grenia Is talir is scoor is printer my nuur de Donal na grenia chum hitche versa boer de gaslabi a Janica tapi is pishi branyeta ta kraken na gerach Dal hitche sta me wa helniga chute salenia Donal na grenia gus Donal na grenia gus Donal na grenia Honna vadeliam rahas pavrabolja waten am shirenegens kursal hitche kid for a howel da arela Louis la wada la Hollister train war na Hercules gregach Dal hitche sta me wa helniga chute salenia Donal na grenia gus Donal na grenia Ta Donal mishke savani golish kis na Liania Becky Ta Donal mishke savani golish kis na Pashia Becky Dal hitche sta me wa helniga chute salenia Donal na grenia gus Donal na grenia Farfecca gus bralik gus Chulainn a hala sé Donal na grenia gola tú hreia chai sé seachtain gola dílan agus na túneller banúji heller Dal hitche sta me wa helniga chute salenia Donal na grenia gus Donal na grenia Nílíon van a gorky narú leis a goman na calínio gus single is pás am réú samáí le sé na seachtain na bladar is brega achtarí scéalta Dal hitche sta me wa helniga chute salenia Donal na grenia gus Donal na grenia Ta Donal mishke savani golish kis na Liania Becky Ta Donal mishke savani golish kis na Pashia Becky Dal hitche sta me wa helniga chute salenia Donal na grenia gus Donal na grenia Woo!